Ian Sabourin. Thanks for talking to me today. So I like to start off with childhood. Tell me about you growing up.
Okay, so where this might start for me, I grew up in Ottawa. So I was born at the General Hospital, near Island Park. That's kind of all I remember from my childhood or what I've been told. Other than that, I kind of lived in Westboro most of my life. Family moved around a lot. My parents both worked for the government, but me being a child of three, my mom kind of took that time off and she spent a lot of time working for random jobs for different organizations. She even worked at a church. That's actually where the whole music starts. So I'm glad you asked me about that because it's a good segue for myself to think, wait, how did I even start music? So I was always singing, apparently, as a kid, but I never learned an instrument. I didn't like piano. I took lessons and then I refused to go. I did gymnastics, I did some sports here and there. But with my mom working at the church, my older brother, Eric, he was asked to join the boys' choir, or I guess the church choir, because he had a nice singing voice. I don't know if I had a nice singing voice. I just thought, whatever Eric did, I want to do, and I want to be better than Eric at it. So what happened was Eric was in this church choir. We were at Westboro United, and I guess I wasn't really aware of like even my memories at that time. I don't really remember other than being like super nervous and like following him around. But then we found out that there was a men and boys choir in town at Christchurch Cathedral in downtown near the courthouse. And there was also another one called St. Matthew's at St. Matthew's Church. So two men and boys choirs. And this tradition comes from England. We can kind of get into that. But then Eric was like a soloist and he was really good at singing. And I was like, okay, he's going to this new choir. So like, it was like the good choir in town. And I found out you got paid at like 8 years old. If you get like any kind of money, that was amazing. So he was making $20 a month. So I was like, okay, I'm joining this choir and I'm in it. Like and then the best part is you could work your way up in the church choir. There was kind of like a seniority medaling system. And the higher up you were, the more money you could make. So you could see like 8-year-old me, I'm doing all the other things kids are doing, but I'm also like, wait, now I can make money singing on Sunday? Like, this is great in cash too, you're like $20 when you're a kid goes far. So that's kind of what started the whole music journey in my childhood was I'm going to be a singer that gets paid money on the weekends, to sing. So it's $20 a month. Other things about my childhood, though, are my parents are split. So that was something that I think impacted me at a young age, just because it was always like, do you want to go to dad's house or stay at mom's? So I stayed at my mom's like full time because that was just how the custody kind of worked. But I got to see my dad once a week or once every 2 weeks. We'd go to museums, watch movies. So it was always like activities, lots of like with my dad. So that's what I associated with my dad. It was always like a fun time. And then I'd come home and have to do homework at my mom's and all the boring stuff. But I really am grateful for not only my parents of like my mom and my dad, but the step parents as well. They all influenced me in a variety of ways where I learned to not get involved in family drama, but to really embrace the differences of like each parent and like their own. I kind of learned at a young age that like everyone has their own path in a way. And I would also say my older brother, he's gay, and he at that like at 8 years old, I almost had a feeling or understanding of what that meant. Like, oh, I think he likes boys, and that's okay. And it was something that in school, obviously, he was bullied. Being the younger brother, I was also smaller, but I would beat up his bullies, or at least go to the office a lot. So those are some flashback memories now of either giving or receiving a bloody nose and sitting in the office. Why'd you fight this guy? Be like, because they're calling my brother a girl, making fun of his outfit because he liked to wear a light blue visor. But this inspired me to be myself, and it was, so I owe a lot to my brother for just being himself and being proud of who he was and never hiding, never really being in the closet. So like as some say, but yeah, he was just himself unapologetically, and that allowed me to, okay, well, if I want to be a singer, I can do it. If I want to dress whatever way I want to dress, and he inspired me to just be myself. So that's a big shout out to my brother there too. Yeah, I really learned a lot from him. And I have a younger sister as well who later we're still in childhood here, but later in life, I was able to share a lot of my passions with her as well. I taught her ukulele and we sang together and stuff. So, yeah.
You all sing?
Yeah, we would all sing together. My brother was more into dancing later. So I even took whatever he did, I would do as well. So he did ballet. I did ballet for maybe like 2 weeks, and I was like, okay. I was like reaching to try and get a chocolate bar, like stretching on my tippy toes, and that was one of the exercises. So I liked that, but other than that, I was like, ballet's not for me. It was too intense and kind of boring. But now I love watching it. But at the time, singing, I just always loved singing. Yeah.
Are you the only one who kept singing out of the three of you?
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm staying at my sister's while I'm in Ottawa this week, but they stopped singing kind of like in high school is when like they started to decide like, oh, maybe it's not for me. My sister was really into soccer. Eric was more into dance. I did sports, but I loved singing kind of the whole way through. Yeah.
So there was never a time that you stopped?
Well, actually, this is kind of crazy. I stopped in grade 6 because my family, like, my mom wanted to spend lots of time with us. Obviously, like, why wouldn't she? But it became almost like there was too many extracurriculars. So I needed to decide between soccer or singing, right? And being a young guy, you're always bullied for being in singing, you know, and it wasn't cool, especially choir singing. Like, we were singing as young boy sopranos. So we're singing in a female register, or later in life a female register, but at that time that was really good for the voice. And I thought like, well, soccer is like cool, you know, all these cool guys play soccer, and my mom started to pay instead of what the church paid for me to sing. She's like, I'll pay you to play soccer. I was like, well, oh my God, I'll take that $20 a month. But maybe after like 2 to 4 months, I was like, you know what? I want to sing. So I would kind of behind my mom's back get my dad to take me to choir practice in like grade 6, kind of like, you know, breaking the rules. It felt really cool to be going to choir practice, but my mom wouldn't know. And eventually it was like, I want to be a singer. And maybe that's why I really stuck with it, was because there was an element of like bad boy energy with like, I can sing and I'm breaking the rules. Yeah.
Well, I like that first flow because it wasn't just the capitalist instinct where like I feel like obviously at the start you're like, oh, I can make $20 to sing, like this is awesome. And then obviously you had that option completely replaced and you're like, yeah, I'll go do that. But you realize like, so was that when you realized like I'm a singer? Or because you said that you put that out like I'm a singer, but what was that time, or was that a bit later? Because obviously you were doing it in secret at that time, like you were kind of sneaking out to the recitals or the rehearsals, excuse me.
Yeah, it's crazy to even like say that again, because I don't think about that moment when I was like, okay, when was I a singer? Was it the going behind my mom's back? Like, I actually think there was like, I can almost remember it was probably grade 8 where I fell in love with the music. And that's where I feel like I really decided I wanted to be a singer, because all throughout like grade 4 is where I really like started this choir. And since that age, I went to my first Green Day concert. That was the first band I ever saw, was Green Day. And then it was Simple Plan. And so that kind of like rocky, emo genre. And I started a band in grade 5. We covered Boulevard of Broken Dreams and Keep on Rockin' in the Free World. And I was singing and playing bass. I taught myself bass guitar in grade 5 because no one else wanted to play bass. But in grade 4, I had seen Green Day, 3-piece band. I was like, oh, well, you got a guitar, bass, and drums. And for their tours, now I learned like, oh, they hire other people to support them. But at the time, I was like, yeah, we can do this. Like, so no bass players, because that wasn't cool in like grade 5. Everyone wanted to play guitar. So I became friends with the guitarists. One of my best friends was a drummer, James Dewar, and then I learned bass. I just taught myself, and the hard part was like singing and playing bass at the same time, but eventually I just like, because I was feeling comfortable with singing, it was never like a confidence thing because of the choir. So if I think about like when did I decide to be a singer, it was when I really fell in love with the church music in grade 7, 8. I fell in love with Renaissance music, Palestrina, and this counterpoint, but also polyphony. It was just so amazing to me. I just like fell in love with this sound of it, not one particular song or one line, but just the world of like using modes in the writing of the music. And I didn't know it was modes at the time, but oh my God, it was just this amazing sound, and I got to be part of it, even if you're one voice. So it was really a team mentality. I never thought of myself as an individual singer until much later in life, because I was always in choirs or I was in a band. I was in many rock bands, but it always felt good to be singing with other people. Kind of like harmonizing like the Beatles, you know? Like I never really wanted my own voice to be like a soloistic thing where, oh, hey, listen to me. It wasn't about that. It was always like, listen to the harmony, listen to the lyrics, the music we're writing, and yeah.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you, what was the music you first fell in love with, but that was it.
Yeah, I fell in love first with Green Day, and then I learned 9 in the Afternoon by Panic at the Disco, and with my friend Andrew White, we learned how to sing in harmony for pop. Like I was always singing in harmony in choir, but in grade 5, grade 6 was when we did the other stuff where I really learned like, oh, I could sing in harmony with someone else. Like you sing this note, I'll sing this note, and we'll just sing that phrase. And it was the coolest experience. Like I will never forget. I even like, we were in the lunchroom, like there was a piano there, we were singing, and then I remember getting on the bus with him that same day, and we were still singing in harmony, and like kids were looking around like, what is this magic that's happening? Because it felt like magic at that time. Like we couldn't explain it. It was just like, okay, you keep singing, we're in these thirds, and it was just like we unlocked something.
So because I was going to ask, I mean, again, like I said, it's sort of we go where the conversation is going, but I was going to ask, hearing that, I was like, oh, did a lot of kids like give you a hard time? Obviously, because we both know how kids can be, where it's just like something foreign and is like easy to make fun of, but then it almost sounds like not, because then the power of music is so universal that people are like, wow, this sounds really good. Like I might kind of want to make fun of it, but like no one else is going to laugh at that, you know? They're all going to be like, well, this is cool, dude. What? So like, how was it?
Well, it was a struggle because I was always associated with a little bit of that like bullying because of being in music. It's so funny that like High School Musical could not have explained it better. Like Troy was in sports and was in music. So I think to back myself up, I actually was in sports, like, and I was really good at sports. So I could always kind of defend myself. If someone wanted to bully me, I'd be like, well, I could probably take you in a fight. At least at that age, I was really big for my like age. It was like kind of stocky. And so I was heavier than everyone else. So it wasn't even like a question. It was like, I could push you over. So I always could defend myself. And I'm lucky for like my, I guess, genetics for that, to say like, you can make fun of me, but like, watch out. Like, so, and I always played those sports. So it was always like, I played rugby. Like, if you're a physical person, it's harder to bully someone, especially at that age, because like you can scrap a little and you're not going to jail for it. So I knew that I was like, one day I won't be able to defend myself with my physical things, so I'll have to get stronger mentally. But by that point, I started to like make money doing it, and when the band started to pick up, you can't really make fun of someone when they're successful, or like, I don't care if you're making fun of me because of the success that came. So it was, at a younger age, it was really difficult, but then I learned if I kept pursuing this path, I would just get so good that you can't even make fun of it. Or if you do make fun of it, it's probably coming from jealousy or from insecurity. So I figured out a lot of those things about people at a young age, not needing to really worry about myself or adjust myself, because again, my brother showed me like, don't adjust who you are. It's actually a reflection of other people and their own like inner world that they were pushing onto me. So yeah, it's crazy.
That's really good to learn that so young though. Like that's such a huge life lesson, right?
Exactly, and I carry it even to this day. And I mean, the weird thing is that like I had kind of disastrous performances when I first started. So like before I performed with the rock band, I rehearsed. My family had a trailer up at a trailer park. Not like the Trailer Park Boys, but like that would have been lit. But like it was just like a nice, pleasant trailer park, and they had a talent show. And I'll never forget. I brought my bass, plugged it into the amp, playing Boulevard of Broken Dreams just with the bass, and my brother was holding the mic, and the bass stopped working. My brother's not the best like mic stand. Like, thank you for doing that, but also like it wasn't that good. So that was the disaster. It was like I forgot the lyrics. I was just like nervous. I was like not in my element, didn't know how to rehearse or anything, just like loved the music. And then I remember in grade 6 there was like Time of Your Life by Green Day with my friend playing the guitar, Adrian Mayost. He was playing Away, and we start the performance and the guitar is super out of tune, and I just like froze. I was like, I can't even find my like, I just can't sing along to this. So I left the stage, had a mental breakdown, just like crying, and then went up at the end of the talent show and redeemed ourselves with the tuned guitar, and we made it through. And those moments really taught me like the show must go on, or you're gonna have bad performances. So now it's like, what do I have to lose? Like, I've already messed up. I've already embarrassed myself. So it can't really go that bad. Like, nothing that bad can really happen.
Speaking of things not going that bad, you said a little earlier the band took off, and then people were not able to make fun of it as much because you're getting money. So tell me about the band and how it took off.
Yeah, so multiple bands, but there was the one in particular, the Riot Police, with Alex Boyd and Nick Jones and Taylor Harris, Riley Hawkins. That was kind of like the core for a majority of the time, but it did move around a little. But Alex Boyd was really like the figure that like I saw them perform at Glebe Fest one year, and they performed some originals. And Alex was in the choir with me, so that's where we became friends. So already I knew I was like, this guy's a great singer. But I went to go, and we were friends from the choir, so went to check out the band, and I was like, wait, you write your own songs? I was like, you can do that? Like, so then I was intrigued, and we wrote our first song ever together in grade 9, or going into grade 9. And he taught me how to basically write a song, just like 4 chords, melody maybe. You know, I listen to the Beatles a ton, which will teach you how to write songs just by listening to them. And then lyrics I kind of came up with, and he would help me with a couple here and there, and I learned like, whoa, this is really cool. So then we wrote songs together for years. We performed all over Ottawa, and then I was telling you, like, we made we opened for AWOL Nation at Blues Fest, and that was like one of the highlights for sure. And then later in life we moved to Toronto as a band together, but Taylor couldn't come with us just because of his life here in Ottawa, and that's where we started to notice, if we don't have a drummer, we don't really have our band. So we'd pay him to drive down to Toronto for the gigs, but we couldn't really rehearse. We'd throw on our metronome or whatever, but it just wasn't the same. And then we kind of lost a bit of steam, and we got busy. Like, we're living in Toronto. We could barely pay our bills, so we had to work. And then we got caught up in the bar scenes and all of this just by life kind of moving so fast. But yeah, going back to like the glory days of the Riot Police, we recorded albums. I recorded at least 2 albums with them, and wrote probably like 50 plus songs with the band. And now I've written over 200, but it's just been like, in that moment, being so young and writing so many songs, it was just so cool to experience that while I was also in choir in high school to kind of keep up with that, like singing, yeah.
So you said meeting AWOL Nation was like a highlight for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, and then maybe if there's any other highlights you can think of.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on that same level, but tell me about meeting AWOL Nation first.
Yeah, so learning about his journey, and I was like, okay, so like I was always curious about like how to make a career out of music, because you don't get sold that when you're young. It's high school, university, good paying job. So I was kind of like weird with money as a singing for money at 8 years old. I was all about money. I was like, money was everything, but I also hated money at the same time, because there'd be weird things like my parents wouldn't want to drive me places because gas was too expensive. And I'd be like, oh, well, there goes my like hobbies and stuff like that because of gas. Like really, like so I started to hate money, and I started to like everything was money driven. So my school, everything like this. But meeting AWOL Nation, he says it took him until he was 35 to like break out with Sail as his single, and before then he was in metal bands and pop bands, musical theater even, and you can kind of hear that in his music now. But that inspired me to just pursue it and to say, you know what, like I don't care if I make it when I'm 15, I don't care if I make it when I'm 20, but like 35 is a nice number there. Like okay, and then you realize like you've never made it. It's just this process of I'm doing the thing. I am a singer. I am trying to be making this happen for a living by not stopping and by sacrificing. A lot of sacrifice has been very apparent being a musician. Sacrificing stability, sacrificing relationships, moving cities, not working when other people are working, but working when everyone else is free. So lots of that. But yeah, he really inspired me to just go for it. It didn't matter what genre I did. I just knew I wanted to be involved in music in some capacity.
So AWOL Nation confirmed, good guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Really good guy. Great songwriter. Very, very inspiring. Yeah, I listened to his album on repeat after. It didn't get that much traction, and I don't know where he's gone recently, but like he's still out there doing his thing. And if you have a song like Sail that's on every car commercial, you probably don't need to hustle too hard after that. Like it's such a good song. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight. Another highlight was going to England with my church choir. This was around the same time, and I went with Alex. So we had this really...
You were about how old?
I was about 16. Yeah, 16 when we had this AWOL Nation thing, and I think probably that same summer, but earlier in the summer, we were in England singing at St. Paul's in London. So this was just like, and we did Salisbury, we were there for 2 weeks residency, and just getting that exposure to these grand, like the architecture in these churches and the culture of kind of like a really structured musical lifestyle that they have over there, and so much support for it made us feel like celebrities. Like we show up in St. Paul's, and you know, when you're dressed up in suits at that age, you feel so cool. So that was a huge highlight that really convinced me, like, wait, I love rock music, but like I kind of love not church music, but like classical music more. And that was kind of part of my lifestyle from, I'd say until I was 18, I had to decide what I wanted to do for school. And I applied to the Royal Military College to be an engineer because I saw their salaries online. You can see what you'll make after 4 years. And I was like, oh, 120K starting after 4 years? This checks out. This is perfect. And I had good grades because I would work my ass. Can I swear on this? Yeah. I would work my ass off and really study and like make sure I was taking French immersion from grade 4 to grade 12, also to honor my last name, Sabourin, you know.
Smart in the city.
Yeah, great. Also very useful in Ottawa, and now I live in Montreal, so even better. It's just so, and it's also, I'm so glad I did it because like speaking French, I love it. But I was training like maths, sciences, doing like chemistry and bio and French, and it was crazy to me. And then physics blew my mind, and I was like, I can't do this. But I met like one of my teachers, I'll never forget, Miss Amimi. That's kind of, or Nadia Amimi, but Miss Amimi, that's how I know her. She really inspired not math, but hard work. And there's been other people in my life who have done that, but she helped me go from like 63 in like advanced functions to like an 85 in one year. So that means I got like 90s, you know, to bump that average. And I would stay in at lunch and I would just work. And then by the time I had to make the decision of what do I do for school? So I put in my application for RMC. I kind of made it to like the last round, but then I told one of the officers that I smoked weed, and I got my dates wrong by a year of like what I told another officer. And they were like, well, yeah, it seems that like you've lied about on your application. I was like, but like I was being honest, I thought. So, and like now weed's legal, so it's crazy. But I mean, I was also like 16, but I was just being honest. I've always been a very open book, as you'll either like get to know, or I'll just be an open book here. So I heard a YouTube video by Alan Watts, like from a lecture, and he's this great philosopher, very like Zen Buddhist related. And in this maybe 4-minute video, it was Alan Watts giving a seminar of what would you do if money didn't exist. And it's so full circle with what I started singing for to what would I do if money didn't exist, and the answer for me was singing. And now I'm a professional singer, making money singing. But the irony of like looking back and taking that risk, and it was my stepdad. This is why when I say my childhood, I'm grateful for all of my parents. My stepdad was the one who, he's a computer programmer for the government. I think he's a spy, but I don't know, and he won't tell us. Yes, it's crazy. But he said he never followed his dream of being a poet. And I just had to. I had to follow my dream after he told me that. And my dad was a mailman, but my dad wanted to be an athlete. So all of my parents never followed the dream. My mom is the most creative person I know, but she went into Statistics Canada Health. Like, she would sometimes just tell me how bored she was, and she would ask for more work, and they would say, if you keep asking for work, we're going to have to let you go. So she would literally just like research like my projects at her work to help me with school and stuff, because she was bored. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not cut out to be a spy. I love singing. And as you can see, all of these like influences from my brother, my parents, everyone inspired me to, without actually supporting me being a singer, they influenced my decision. If you'd asked them at the time, they were probably like, what are you doing? Do not be a musician in this economy, like in this world, like go for the engineering. What are you doing? But it ended up working out. It's taken them probably the last 5 years. So when I really like finished school and started working professionally, getting a couple breaks where they started to understand like, oh, he can support himself doing this. But yeah, I took my own student loans, still paying them off, but proudly. I never got help from my parents financially. Maybe once they paid for like groceries, like they sent me $100 because living in Toronto, I was like, I need that extra help. But I always was independent, because another thing I'll mention is my busking, street performing, for people who don't know busking. But I started that at like 12 years old with one of my friends from the choir, not Alex. He did it a couple times with me, but my friend Michael Golod, who I still see nowadays. He's a doctor. And he was the trained soprano soloist when we were boys. So he had this amazing voice. And I learned kind of singing in that choir style from him. And we would go in the Byward Market on a Saturday. At the time, you could sign up if you were like under 16 before all the rules came into play. You know, it was probably like 2009-ish and 2011-ish, whatever, around these years. And we would make like each like $200 in 2 hours, singing the soprano 1 and soprano 2. So it's the first 2 harmonies of the choir, just from memory, go through maybe 6 tunes. And then we would go to McDonald's, and back in the day, you could get like 2 junior chickens and a McDouble for $5. So we would do that and just count our change at the McDonald's down there before it was like super sketchy. It was like, and it was the afternoon.
I was gonna say that McDonald's.
Yeah, watch out! Don't go there now. But yeah, at the time it was
gone.
Oh wow!
They closed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
talking
glad.
about the Reno Street McDonald's.
Yep. Oh my god. Yeah. Wow. So many things have happened there. But yeah, like counting your busking change. And I could buy things at that age. Like my friends who might have got money from their parents, like I was getting way more. I bought my first bass guitar, a Jaguar Fender. So I still have it. So sexy. So I used that with the Riot Police. I bought my own clothes because I'd be like, hey mom, I want shoes. She'd be like, you have shoes. Like we have shoes at home. And I'd be like, well, I'm going to go buy my own. Or every Christmas gift, like my mom is the best gifter, but would never get me like the GameCube or the Xbox, so I would just buy it for myself. So I was bawling at a very young age, and even now I busk. Like this summer, so far I've made $500. I've gone like 5 times, so about $100 each time. I'm not as cute as I used to be, and it's just like it's very taxing. Like it's now that I am a professional, I'm making only $100 for like an hour of singing. Like that should be at least like $1,000. So yeah, that's another like little fun fact is I street performed, and I really want to encourage anyone that has any talent or anything that they believe in, share that with people on the street. Like it sounds sketchy maybe, but you get so much visibility. Like I meet students that I get to teach singing to now. I meet friends. I met in Toronto when I busked. I started another band after the Riot Police because we kind of disbanded. Alex kept the band going, made some amazing songs. Go check them out. But I met one of my drummers, Alicia. She was just smoking a blunt at Bay and Bloor, and I look at her and I was like, hey, like, how's it going? Like I smelled some weed. I was like, okay, that person looks really cool. Like, what's up? And she comes up to me. She's like, oh, I'm a jazz drummer. I was like, do you have a band? Because drummers are rare, and especially like cool drummers, you know? So I was like, do you want to start a band? And we started a band. So that band was called Lovely, Lovly, not like the band Lovely, but Lovely, all caps. And we started a band in Toronto, and we played a couple shows, nothing too crazy. But then shortly after that, I had voice surgery. And that's another huge part of my story is in 2019, I had vocal cord surgery to remove a polyp. So that has also fueled my teaching. Now I love to teach singing to help other singers, but also that kind of like, what do I have to lose, to circle back to that, like the bullying and stuff, or all of like questioning being a singer. It's like, I've had voice surgery. I've been bullied for this. I've had bad performances. Nothing could actually have been worse than voice surgery. And ever since then, I've felt more empowered in a way. Like I sing because I love to sing. I don't have to prove anything. I have a healthy instrument now. So yeah, that's another thing I need to slide in any story about myself. Crazy moment.
How hard was the voice surgery?
So the hardest thing about the voice surgery was not knowing what was going to happen post-surgery. So pre-surgery, I was getting like steroid injections directly into the vocal folds, like while being awake, which was a crazy experience. Like sitting there, had to be super still, having a scope with a needle attached to it. So like light, camera, needle, like 3, going through your nose, super uncomfortable, kind of like a COVID test, but like going into the larynx. And like you're sitting there and you have to breathe like very soft, like quietly, so that there's no friction and you can't really move. So I had to close my eyes to focus, and it felt like I was like floating and the world was spinning around me. And then I feel this little like a little click, and Aaron Lowe was the doctor who did this, injected the steroid into this polyp in hopes that it would like smooth it out and it would go away so that I could audition for my master's. And all of this was happening kind of like January, February. I flew down to Boston to audition because I got an audition at New England Conservatory, had an audition at U of T and at McGill. And the only place I got in was McGill. And actually I got into U of T, but that was kind of like a favor from my teacher. I don't think that was merited. And then McGill, it was so strange. Like I got in with a really good scholarship, but I had an injury. So I got accepted into a program before my surgery, and I was like, what do I do? Like I'm getting this surgery. So then post-surgery, I had to do speech therapy. I watched all of Game of Thrones again. I started playing more video games again. I couldn't talk. I wasn't able to speak, I think, for like the first 2 weeks, which is hard for me. I love to talk. And like I was in a relationship at the time where it put a strain on everything. Like I had to text, and like you have to really control your emotions when you can't speak, because you have to be calm. Because if your vocal cords will kind of speak quietly, even if you aren't able to speak, they kind of vibrate by sympathy. So if you're listening to a singer, your vocal cords will sing quietly. They will do the actions. It's crazy. I learned all that stuff while I was like not speaking. And then I started to speak 5 minutes a day, which like is the most terrifying thing when you just had surgery. You're like, okay, I am speaking again. I'm doing speech therapy, of course. I had a great doctor who helped me like really do tons of exercises, lots of lip trills and straw phonation exercises, things to reduce inflammation. And oh my God, the most stressful part was going into the follow-ups and having again the scope, sitting there and like hoping to God that you've been following the protocols. And you know, we're talking about water and ice water. I want to bring that up because at the time I'm like, well, ice cream, soups, you know, like anything like popsicles, like, oh, that'll soothe my throat. But little did I know, and this was kind of a self-discover, like I found this out by like trial and error, cold stuff gives you more mucus because your voice thinks like, oh no, like there's panic mode, like we're freezing. It's like, so I was making more mucus. Mucus was falling down from my nasal passage onto the vocal cords and making me cough. And every time I would cough, I would cry because I would be like, I've ruined my voice. Like, you know, so it was such an emotionally crazy time. I journaled a lot during this time, and I haven't read it back yet, but I have the journal, and I will look at it probably maybe in my 10-year anniversary of surgery just to see like how far I've come, because now I'm so proud of all of that hard work. It's making me emotional even thinking about it. But yeah, it was a crazy time. And then I'll never forget the first time I sang after surgery. The way I describe it is like a rocket ship taking off in my throat. It's like vibrations like I never felt like ever, because my association with singing for years, like this injury I probably had from, I've listened back to voice memos to try and find exactly when it was, or like recordings with the rock band, because like it works in rock to have that kind of growl, but when you're singing opera, it needs to be like as clean, like super clean, no breathiness. But I couldn't control that because of the polyp. So I think probably within first year or second year university, I had a polyp. And a polyp is different from nodules. Nodules is kind of like callus from playing guitar. It's things that build up, muscle or a little bit of like tissue that builds up on your vocal folds. Rather, a polyp is like a blood vessel that popped. So it's an instantaneous moment. Like Adele knew in a concert when that happened to her, or so I've heard. For me, I was in rock bands. I was smoking, drinking, singing opera and busking the streets of Toronto, and then going to my exams and singing opera for that, and then going to play at the Horseshoe the next day. Like, it was crazy, and I never knew what state my voice was in. There'd be good days, bad days, but my voice was just kind of like, it was what it was, and I thought I was invincible. But I actually had one voice lesson with this tenor, famous tenor in the Baroque music, like early music world, Charles Daniels. He was giving me a lesson, and he was like looking in my mouth to be like, what's going on? He's like, I feel like you need to go get checked out, because nothing he was trying was kind of removing the air from the sound. And then that's when that big moment happened. So when I finally sang again, when that rocket ship took off in my throat, it was the cleanest, healthiest singing. And I do this because that's my vocal cords and coming together. It was just the most amazing feeling, but my range was different. This was crazy, because all of the music I knew that I studied from in my university time, which was mainly of like the higher tessitura of like mezzo soprano, and I don't even think I've mentioned yet that I'm a countertenor. So that's where you sing in your falsetto as a man. So instead of singing in the lower range, I probably would have been a baritone. I guess I am a baritone. I am a countertenor, and that comes and was influenced through the church singing, because in a men and boys choir, although now it's much more open to men and women, like thankfully for equality, but at the time the traditions were that women couldn't have sung. So to have harmony, to have nice 4-part harmony, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, the altos were countertenors, or are countertenors if they're men. So singing in the falsetto. When I was 18 and I started university, I loved singing in that part of my range because that's what I did as a boy. But I didn't think it was a countertenor or I'm singing in any weird range. To me, it was kind of normal. Although I found out and still learn today that it's super strange for a lot of people. And then I fell into the soloistic stuff. So if you kind of like pack into like, I'm not only getting voice surgery, but I've chosen a pretty challenging tessitura to sing in. So post-surgery, I lost about like a fourth from my high notes. Like I almost used to be more of a sopranist and sing up to like high Ds, almost like triple piano, beautiful, like very angelic and choir boy-like. But now, I'm 29 years old, I'm a man. I sing a little bit lower, but I still like am extending my range higher. And I found like the best teacher I've ever worked with now, Lena Hellström-Farnlöf. She's from Sweden, and she has really helped me find a technique, like a reliable, strong technique. And before surgery, I didn't even care about technique. I was like, just sing. But I chose opera. Like there are techniques, kind of like ballet. You can do it, you can improvise it, but if you want to be one of the best, or at least paid like the best, then you probably want some good technique. So that's where I'm at now. I'm working my technique every day, and it's going well. Yeah.
It's funny because literally what you said was where I was going to go in terms of like when did you switch to a solo artist, so like or a solo singer, I guess I should say, as opposed to considering yourself like, oh, I'll always be part of a team, a choir, a group, whatever. So can we just dig into that a little bit more, because I feel like we just glossed over it a little bit. But so you have the surgery, you do all this time rehabbing your voice, and finally sing, and then what's the key moment where you're like, oh. And like you said, you also pick a range that's a little bit more unique for your voice. But where's the sort of the line where you're like, okay, I think I'm actually going to go this way, or like I could go this way anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is still kind of a hot topic for myself that I think about a lot, because life is short, but there are so many things we can do as artists. Like we can create so many things on our own, but being a classical singer, you're singing a lot of music that's already been written. Now, of course, there's contemporary stuff that is always possible, but this whole decision of being a solo singer meant saying goodbye to choir and definitely saying goodbye to rock music. Although you can be a solo rock singer, like the front man. I never really liked that too much. I always loved being with the team singing in harmony, probably going back to Panic at the Disco days. But the moment, it's still kind of happening, and it kind of happened when I got accepted into the Young Artist program at Opera Montreal. That was my first sign of like, oh my God, people think I can do this. Like I always knew in my heart I could, but this was like just 2-3 years after surgery, I got accepted as the first countertenor ever into Opera Montreal's Young Artist program. Young Artist programs are really important for young singers because they provide us with money, a weekly stipend. I call it a stipend because it's not as much as it could be, but it's not bad. And then training and opportunities, networking, as we all need this kind of stuff. So that was the moment where it's like, okay, maybe I need to cool it on my choral singing. Even though I love it and I love the community more than anything from choral singing, that's also why I did it for so long. Not so much for the cash. That kind of stopped in around grade 8. I was like, the money, whatever, because busking money was way better than all that. So that's what really started, and post-surgery was really what ignited the No More Rock bands. Because when I sing in my rock voice, it was so raw, but raw doesn't always mean healthy. Raw doesn't always mean technical. For some it can, right? You're gonna hear some of these people out there, it's like, you sound like Pavarotti, but you never had a voice lesson? What's going on? Or you sound like Freddie Mercury. I mean, apparently he was classically trained, but still, like, there's some voices out there that maybe aren't trained, and I would always compare myself to them, being like, I want to be like that. But with rock music, it was, from such a young age, just passion-driven. So I decided around the past 3 years, like, now it's been 6 years since the surgery, so I'd say about, like, that halfway point 3 years ago was where I started to say I need to focus more on the solo stuff. I still do choral stuff for volunteer or just to be part of that community. Rock, I do for fun. I call rock music, like, even if I'm with an acoustic guitar, writing my own songs, I still do it just to like get out emotions and to just like create. It's so fun to like write lyrics and write things that are relatable. So I do that for fun still, but the true decision of like the day-to-day grind is going to be putting all the eggs in the basket of countertenor world. So training my falsetto every single day or resting is what I'm needing to do. Like, I'm on day 5 of performing every day now. So the next 2 days, I'm just gonna chill. My teacher would say like, don't even talk, but like, gotta pay the bills in other ways, so like teaching and stuff like this. But yeah, it's really like a choice, and I would advise a lot of people, like, if you want to do something like really well, right? You can be a jack of all trades, of course, but if you're trying to do something, like, give it a shot. Take that risk by actually focusing. Like, what magic could happen if you focus? And now that I am focused on just countertenor, it's like I got into like competitions I never thought I'd get into, or I'm covering at the Canadian Opera Company, which is a crazy thing that's happening this fall, September to October. I'm covering Orfeo e Euridice by Gluck, covering one of the best countertenors in the world, Yeston Davies, and it's like a dream come true. And it's like during my 30th birthday, it's going to be like a full circle moment I'll never forget, with Alex and the guys like coming out of the subway station at the Four Seasons Center, looking up and being like, and probably singing a tune, being like, I'm going to be on that stage one day. Now, I'm covering, I might not actually go on, but I'm working there. Like, I signed a contract, I am working there. And to me, that's just like the most full circle moment of the countertenor journey, where the soloistic singing, doing this role with one of the top in the world, like, I could not believe it. So yeah, it's crazy what can happen if you focus, you know. And this is, it's like the universe is giving back to that trust that I'm giving to myself of, I'm going to focus. I'm not going to, like, I'm on day 197 that we are into the year now of like not drinking. So like that soberness has also helped me focus, because like I love to party. Like, and I'm a great partier. I could give myself credit. If anything, I'll just fall asleep. But man, I'm a good partier, and almost too good. That's why I had to stop, because it's just, and like in my family, it runs deep, the alcoholism. So it's really good for me. And again, that kind of like universe signal, maybe it's just the non-alcohol signal of like how good I feel, but the voice is working now. And it's like, it's, what do I give credit to? It could be so many things, so many people, but I'm starting to take the credit myself and to say, okay, like, I've done this. I've sacrificed all of those parties. Oh my God, I've missed so many parties now. Or it's different, right? Like, I love a good non-alcoholic beer. It fills that, and I can have one, because like, what's the point of having more if it's alcohol free, you know? So yeah, that's another part of my journey right now, of helping the career in other ways throughout. Like, I'm training, I've got that focus there, so how else can I influence it? Like yoga or running, these are other things I do once in a while, sprinkle it in, makes the body feel so good. And yeah.
You talked earlier about singing at St. Paul's in England and in London, and that, because some people don't realize like the way that these structures are architected, to when there is a choir or like a harmony of voices, the effect that can create with the architecture. And I just want you to talk about that for a minute, like how incredible the human voice is, and also that lineage, obviously, of like centuries ago, people understanding like a bunch of voices all together, and the right architecture also, because a bunch of voices all together on their own is already incredible, but then you can even accentuate it more by having the right structures that create the correct acoustics. How incredible is this?
Oh, this kind of like taps into so many angles of life, because acoustics, right? Like, I actually took a course on musical acoustics at U of T, and going back to like in St. Paul's, there's like a 8 or 11 like second echo. Like, just imagine that, right? Like, you're hearing the voices of your friends, your like family members, basically like ringing in this church. So that is definitely like a captivating moment that I don't think anyone, like Alex even has a tattoo of St. Paul's on his arm. I might get one soon. We'll see. I'm going back this summer, so it's cool that you asked that question because I'm going to be able to relive it. We're going with the more or less the same choir, like a lot of the same people. We're going back to St. Paul's for like a 2-week residency, or maybe a 1-week residency. But then like it's so epic. I should know more of the schedule, but I'm going there. That's all that really matters. And to be able to experience those acoustics, like, so yes, if you go back, all of this music was written for basically cement, to reverberate all over the cement. And the human voice functions best with overtones and then reverb. So that's why if you sing in your shower, it's going to sound amazing. It's because it sounds amazing. Like, the sound wave is reflecting over all of these surfaces that it's going to fill the room with overtones. And that's what enters the human body. Like, that's the best part, right? It's a sound wave. It's a physical thing that has direction and enters into your bones. So that being said, it can be tricky as a singer because you never know what you sound like. You only know what it can feel like, but it will bounce back at you. So somewhere like St. Paul's, or anytime I get the chance to sing in a church, really, but like St. Paul's is exceptionally known for that. Probably, I think, the best acoustic in the world, if not top 3. Because you don't want to have too much echo either. Like, too much and you get lost in the sauce. But this is really like a special place. And it's cool because at that age, I didn't know I would be going back one day. And it's fun. Anytime I'm in London, whether it's for auditions or for travel, my fiance, she sings at the Royal Opera House sometimes. She's amazing. Shout out Sarah Dufresne. So I get to go to London a lot. And just every time I pass it, it's like you look at that building, and it's not even the first edition. Like, there was a fire that burned down the first one, so it's like a remake, and you always question, like, what was the first one like? Like, what did it sound like? And it's cool that we get to live in those moments of like, okay, I get to go back, but I'm going to be going back this time not as a boy treble, but as a countertenor in the alto section. So it's really cool I get to see other people experience their first St. Paul's experience. And I'm sure we'll all be crying by the last service as we did when we were boys. It's just so emotional to be there and to the way the acoustics work. It's really like you can't explain it. And another cool thing about St. Paul's is actually the tower or the dome. If you're on one side of the dome and you whisper, you can hear it as if the person's beside you, but it has to be directly on the other side of the dome. And you just say like, hey, what's up, loser? And then your friend will hear you on the other side. And then you can have a conversation. It's crazy. So acoustics, it's just something. And just to go further with it, because being a singer, it's something I think about all the time. But in rock singing, why I also maybe shy away from that now is because the acoustics are different. And that means the setup is different. The muscles, the spaces that I'm making with my larynx or with my tongue or my mouth position or even your lips, it can change the acoustics drastically inside. And we often don't think about the acoustics inside our voice. Yes, St. Paul's is cool, but the inside of your mouth might actually be cooler because it's so unique. No two mouths are the same or bodies are the same. Our noses, our nasal passages, our cavity, and really what we can't see is the larynx, the structure on the inside, or the pharynx. This is kind of the most important thing to me for singing at the moment is the pharynx, because for so long I thought singing was magic, as it sounds like magic, right? But it's science if you break it down into science. So the pharynx is the space that lies behind the nose and behind the mouth. So like at the back of our mouth. So we can't really see it unless you're either scoped, like I was, or lots of people are, or if you look in the mirror at the back of your mouth with it super wide open. And yes, you'll see your soft palate there, but you'll also see the pharynx, which is the wall, and that wall is muscles. It's like mucosal membranes that kind of line the back of your throat. And these membranes can be flexible with your mind. And this is the thing that I was always like, this is bullshit. You know, I was reading books on this and I'm like, you can't control this, but you can if you really think about it. At the first time, it might be weird, but the more that you can start to really manipulate these shapes, you go from something like speech, which is more like who, where maybe my ooh vowel is a little brighter, who, ooh, 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 where I can also then think about maybe a yawn is a good place to start, where you create all this space. Even if I speak in a yawn, all of a sudden I'm opening up something. What am I opening up? Well, my throat. But what does that mean? Well, I'm thinking about the pharyngeal wall opening. I'm thinking about my larynx being slightly lowered. So instead of who, it becomes who. And all of a sudden, yes, my lips change, all this stuff. But ooh, instead of ooh, depending on the colors you want, you can go through ooh, like you can create these basically overtone singing, right? So all of this stuff is just like going on in my head while I'm singing. And then imagine if something comes out brighter in the room, it's going to be brighter, right? It's the overtones that carry. So yeah, this is the fascinating part of the acoustics of the voice, at least. I could talk about, honestly, probably forever. Yeah.
That's actually amazing. We don't have forever, though. We're basically at the end.
Wow.
I always like to finish up just asking people what they would say to people. You said so much. Like, you said so much good stuff, but just if you had, what you have a platform right now to the world, what would you say to people?
Take risks, right? Follow your dreams. And if I can echo Alan Watts with, what would you do if money didn't exist? Because it does exist. And we have to face that every single day. We have to wake up, we have to pay our bills, we have to do things we don't always want to do. But if you start to sprinkle in your passion, and you might not know what your passion is, maybe your passion is banking, then do it. Become the best banker you can be. But I really believe in this mentality of, what if money didn't exist? Then you will get money from that thing. Alan Watts would say, if it wants to be horseback riding, do horseback riding. Well, then you could start a ranch. You could be riding horses with your friends and teach horseback riding lessons. Like, anything is possible. So that's my best advice, is ask yourself that question of, what would you do if money didn't exist?
Ian Sabourin, thanks for talking to me, man. That was amazing.
Thank you.